What's going on, y'all? Your boy Darius the Great here, back again for a movie review. That's right, as you can see, Blue Beetle. Went and saw Blue Beetle today, and I'm gonna give you my honest review of the film. And there's not gonna be any spoilers in this. I will have some spoiler talk on my podcast, Great Talkability. The newest episode will be dropping soon. I when I think about this film, man, I think of one thing. Generic. I think this movie is very generic, but it isn't as generic as, say, Shazam: Fury of the Gods. That film, I feel like, was painfully generic. This wasn't painfully generic. It was just a generic, serviceable, your run-of-the-mill superhero origin movie, right? It was nothing special. There was nothing you haven't seen before. It wasn't reinventing the wheel. It was an all right movie. I mean, I had a good enough time. I didn't walk out being like, wow, that was amazing. Wow, I really had fun. There were some fun moments. There were some funny moments. There were some moments that tried to be funny and fun and didn't quite land for me. But overall, I walked away thinking that it was a good movie, perfectly good movie. Wasn't bad. And honestly, when it comes to DC these days, going into their movies, as we wind down towards the DCU with James Gunn, all I really want is a movie that isn't bad, that isn't mediocre. Like this, I wouldn't put in the mediocre category. It's like, it's a passing movie. Like I said, man, it's a perfectly passable movie. Xolo, I believe his last name is Malduena, I believe. Him as Jaime Reyes, as Blue Beetle, is pretty good. Found him really charismatic. Like, I've never seen Cobra Kai, right? So I haven't seen him before. This is my first exposure to him, right? And for what it's worth, I think he was very likable. And knowing that he will be continuing on in the DCU with James Gunn, I look forward to seeing him in like some Teen Titans or Young Justice stuff, just seeing him interact with other heroes around his age. And then even like older heroes, like pair him up with Batman, like in the Brave and the Bold series. That'd be great. So yeah, I think he was fine. The family, George Lopez was the highlight of the family, of course. He was the highlight of the movie, I think. Like, he could have been very cringe. His character could have been very cringe if played by maybe any other actor. But it's George Lopez bringing that George Lopez flair that actually made what could be cringe pretty funny. Like, the whole stupid thing that had people pissed off. A certain group of people pissed off in the trailers where he says, oh, Batman's a fascist. Like, people got so butthurt about that. That group of people, like, the videos on YouTube of grown men sitting there raging out over that as if someone stepped on their dog. Like, in the actual movie, it makes sense because he's a conspiracy theorist. He thinks everything, like he's all about all the government, they're tracking us, they're listening to us, they're gonna wipe our brains and stuff. Like, he's all about that. So it perfectly made sense. And then, like, even after he says it in the film, he gives it like a bit more context in terms of why he thinks that. So like, that was a non-problem at all. And speaking of the family, I think the biggest thing with this film, with me, is that it has the Miss Marvel effect. In that the family dynamics, seeing the family bounce off each other, just seeing what a realistic family looks like, whether it's, a Mexican or not, just seeing a family together, it was much more interesting than the actual superhero comic booky stuff, like him in the suit, him flying around, him turning his, hands into weapons, all that good stuff. Like, that was cool, but really it was the family. It was the family that carried the movie. It was the bright spot, man. Like, anytime he had to go into Blue Beetle mode, I was just like, man, I kind of want to spend more time with the family. And that's, I suppose you could say, is a good problem to have, but I think that also speaks to the fact that the film just didn't make the Blue Beetle like scenes special, because it very much felt like what you've come to expect with a superhero origin movie of someone getting their powers for the first time, freaking out, oh my god, I don't know what's going on, and it's just like, you've seen it before. It's nothing special. The villains. Painfully. Now that's painfully generic. What's her name? What is the actress's name? I gotta look her name. The one that plays if I even say what role she is, that might be a spoiler, because I don't know if it's public, like information. It's like Sandra something. What's her name? Susan Sarandon. Her character is just one note evil white lady business person. It's just like, that's all it is. It's like I feel like that's all they told her when they were like, all right, we're about to get rolling on this movie. Your character, your motivation, evil, rich, white lady. There you go. Like that's all they gave. That's all they gave her. And like, look, I have no problems with, villains who are just evil, right? Like, I think nowadays in comic book movies, we need a little bit more of that, because it feels like every single time a villain has to have some redeeming quality, they have to have some tragic backstory that makes you feel for them and understand why they're doing what they're doing. But it's all about the writing, it's all about the execution. Like, think about the High Evolutionary in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. He's just an evil dude, but it's the writing and it's the performance that is just like, I don't care that he's just evil. He is great. Like, he is captivating. She wasn't captivating. And then you had the character's name's Carapax. In the comics, I believe, is like Invincible Man or something like that, or Indestructible Man, played by, let me get his name, Raul Trujillo. Like, his character, I feel like he should have just been the main villain. Like, he should have had the bulk of the screen time as the villain, and she could have just been on the side as like his benefactor or something. Because like, he has an interesting element to him. Like, even without spoiling anything, throughout the whole movie, right, they kind of tease, they show little signs that there's something more to him, right? And then by the end of the film, it takes a bit of a turn to where like, oh, that's why you're doing what you're doing. But they do it at the very end. So like, you go throughout the whole film with him not really getting much in terms of his character, and then at the very end, they just force it all right there on you, and it's just like, whoa. But it's pause. Wait. This could have been stuff you could have sprinkled in throughout the movie, or at the very least had it as like the movie's cold open, But they didn't do that. It's like, that's my biggest gripe with him, is that there was so much intrigue with his character, but they didn't execute with it. Like, they did not utilize it well. And speaking of like execution, there is a couple of scenes, right, where I feel like they're trying to make like a social commentary moment, right, on like the Mexican culture and whatnot, but it doesn't quite hit the mark in terms of execution. Like, this is like this is a bit of a spoiler in terms of what happens in the movie. It's just like, there's a scene where like he goes to a place, tells like a white lady his name, he says, I'm Jaime, and she's like, oh, Jamie, and he's like, no, it's Jaime, and it's like, it's supposed to be a social commentary moment on that, but it doesn't make sense that she would say that, because he's telling her, he's saying his name, right? He's saying Jaime, and she's defaulting to Jamie, which would be different if he wrote it down, right? Like, if he wrote it down and handed it to her and she read it, and it's just like, Jamie? He's like, no, it's Jaime. That would be different, because if you see how it's spelt, you would naturally think, oh, it's probably Jamie. But it's the fact that that's not what happened. He's just saying his name is Jaime, and she's going, Jamie. It's just like, you have to consciously go, no, Jamie. It's just, Stuff like that. And it's not a lot in this movie. It's just little moments like that where I'm like, I get what you're trying to do, but the execution is just botched. And that's it really stuck out to be like a sore thumb. But yeah, man, overall, right, I feel like, oh no, before I forget, there's one thing that like really bugs me about this movie, and it is the scarab itself, right? Like, I'm not a huge Blue Beetle fan. I know a bit about Blue Beetle, but I'm basing this off of what I've seen in like other iterations of the character on screen in terms of like animation or even the Injustice video games, but mainly animation. And is that the scarab itself, right? It has a personality, or it's supposed to. But in this movie, it is mainly just it's just an AI. It's like Jarvis, but not as good. Like, even Jarvis in the MCU has had a personality, you know. But the scarab here, it's just very much like an AI. It's like an AI assistant, you know. Like, it's like your Siri or your Alexa, or it's like that. It's how it sounds, how it talks, even though it's supposed to be this sentient alien, you know, life form. And I think back to like Young Justice, where like there's actual personality there. The Scarab and Jaime have a relationship, kind of like Venom and Eddie Brock in the Venom movies. Like, how that's portrayed, how their relationship is portrayed, not to that extent of, you know, because Venom is like, the Venom symbiote is a little more like human. He's got a little more human personality to him, but something similar to that is how the Jaime Scarab relationship is supposed to be, and we didn't get that. It was just an AI. That's all it was, and that was a letdown. And I hope when James Gunn gets his hands on him in the DCU, I hope he actually gives the Scarab a personality, because that's like the best parts of Blue Beetle when he's in Young Justice, is just that Scarab going rogue. And it's just like there's scenes where he's like, Jaime, I can break his legs. Jaime Reyes, do you want me to break his legs? It's like, no, I don't want you to break his legs. Don't do that. It's like, it would be the most efficient manner. It's like, no, like, it has. I just wish they would have gave it more personality. That's all I have to say about that. Overall, though, I think the film is perfectly serviceable. Again, nothing special. I'd give it like a 7 out of 5. God, that didn't make any sense. 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10. I mixed up like 5-star ratings and like a out of 10 rating. It's a 7 out of 10 for me. I don't think I have any desire to watch it again. I'm not sure that I do, but it's fine. It's fine, man. Look, is it the best DC, you know, movie since the Nolan trilogy? No, I've seen some people say that, and I'm just like, we watched 2 completely different movies, man. It might not even be third place, you know. Like, Wonder Woman for me is the best, you know, DC, you know, DCEU movie, right? Then I would say The Suicide Squad. Then I would say, I don't even know if I could say this movie. I'd probably say Aquaman, even though, like, I don't even like Aquaman all that much, but that third act, good lord. Aquaman riding that giant, like, crab monster or whatever that was, man. Like, that stuff was great. Like, him fighting Ocean Master, my god, that third act is glorious. And that almost outweighs the entire Blue Beetle movie. But it is definitely one of the better DC movies post-Nolan. Not the best. Not by a long shot. But yeah, man, thank you guys so much for watching. All right, click that like button, man. Helps YouTube to know that you like what you see. Subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notification bell, man. And I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.